Welcome to G-Data's technical podcast. In this episode, we will cover basic troubleshooting guidelines. By the end of this episode, we will have covered some of the most frequently occurring scenarios. Most cases that are reported to our support engineers fall in one of three categories: client-server connectivity, installation, and updates. The client-server connection is indicated in the G-Data Administrator panel. It will show your PC as protected if all virus signatures are up to date and the client connects to the management server on a regular basis. If the client fails to connect to the management server altogether, then the connection to the management server should be checked. The Telnet client that comes with Microsoft Windows can be used to do this. The test should be done from the machine which apparently fails to connect to the management server. Note that although it is part of Windows features, it is not enabled per default on Windows 7 and Windows 8, as well as Server 2008 R2 and 2012. On Windows 7 and Windows 8, just go to the Programs and Features dialog and select Turn Windows Features on or off. Set a check mark next to Telnet Client and click OK. On server operating systems, open your Server Manager and navigate either to Manage or to the Features section of your Server Manager. Select Telnet Client and follow the instructions on your screen. The Telnet server is not required. Then open a command line window and issue the command telnet and a blank space, followed by the server name, another blank space, and the number 7161. This is the port number used by the management server. If the connection is intact, you should see cryptic characters in your command line window. Should you get an error message, try the command again, but this time with the management server's IP address instead of its host name. Should the connection succeed then, the DNS resolution has failed for some reason. This is often the case if the client is on the other end of a VPN tunnel. The way to resolve this is to change one registry key. You will find it at -key local machine, software, WOW6432, G-Data, AVK client. On a 32-bit machine, you will find it of course at -key local machine, software, G-Data, AVK client. The key is called server. Make sure to enter the IP address in there. The same solution applies if the connection is working, the client is installed correctly, but still fails to connect to the management server. In some cases, an incorrect server name can be the reason for clients to fail to connect. A possible scenario where this may occur is the decommissioning of an old management server and the installation of a new one which has a different host name or IP address. If you are currently getting set up with G-Data and experience any issues while updating the virus signature files, check if you have any third-party firewalls between the management server and the internet. If so, make sure that the management server can reach the domain gdatasecurity.de on port 80. While you're at it, also check if there is a content filtering system in place. In some firewalls, you can find content filtering modules as well. Some of them are known to block the updates for G-Data. Make sure that the domain gdatasecurity.de is whitelisted. An indication for issues that may arise from the use of a content filter or third-party firewall is an error message like "An invalid request was sent to the update server." Even if you are sure that no such thing is in place, make double safe, because there have been lots of situations where the network administrator or service provider was unaware that there even was a content filtering module active. When installing a client, the G-Data Administrator will display details of the process of the installation in the Installation History dialog. If any error messages appear in there, always make sure to check if the client meets the requirements for a remote installation. Those also include some ports which must be available on both sides, on the client and the management server. As mentioned earlier, the management server must be reachable on port 7161. The client must be available on port 7167. Furthermore, the client's remote registry service must be running at least for the time of the installation. Administrative shares must also be available on the clients. $C and admin$ must be present. You can check this using the command line window and issuing the command net share. The installation of any software on any PC requires administrator permissions. When starting the installation of a client, you will be prompted for a username and a password. In a domain network, use the credentials of the domain administrator. In a workgroup setting, use any account on the machine which you know has administrator privileges. Whichever applies to you, always make sure that the account actually is password protected. Another thing you may also want to take a close look at is whether an old antivirus software is installed or an old version of GData, in which case you must either use AV Cleaner for older GData versions or the other vendor's removal tool. If you have used any antivirus software at all before, chances are that you have encountered what is referred to as a false positive detection, or FP for short. While there is an exceptionally low number of FPs with GData, they do happen. If this is the case, take an original copy of the file which has been flagged and put it into a password-protected zip or RAR archive. Use the word infected as your password. All letters must be lowercase and without quotation marks. If using a different password, make sure to write it into your email and send it all to our support staff. If the file is critical to your everyday operation and must prevent it from being deleted or otherwise being damaged, you can either set up a monitor exclusion or perform a signature rollback where you push out an older version of the virus signatures which did not have the problematic detection. Whenever you need to contact our support team on any subject, make sure to have the following information available: the version of GData which is installed. Refer to the Info or About menu either on the client or in the GData administrator. Any error messages that you're getting, the number of affected computers and their operating systems, and any other piece of information that may help clarify the issue. This information can then be sent to business-support@gdata.co.uk. If you have any questions about any of the topics covered in this episode or would like to give feedback about this podcast, feel free to send an email to int-presales@gdatasoftware.com. Again, that email address is int-presales@gdatasoftware.com. We hope you were able to take something away from this podcast and look forward to providing you with more valuable information in our next episode. Thank you for listening and goodbye.